blinding.
Oh. No,
Yeah.
your forward light is better. I've got this lamp up here, and it makes me look like I'm Sybil Shepherd, and I've got this hazy fog over me or Vaseline over the screen.
Did I join too early?
Tell me your name and what character you played in 2014, and then in 2019.
That'll be difficult.
Being joined right now by Kenlynn Winsor and
Hello.
Hi, I'm Matthew Sutphen.
Hi, my name's Eden Fahy.
Hi, I'm Dermot Louchart.
My name is Robin Tittelbaugh.
My name is Rosie Ryan.
I was just an ensemble member in the 2014 version. Sorry, a special ensemble member. I was the old lady who cut Pontine's hair. In the 2016 version, 2019 version, I don't know what year it is anymore. I played the amazing role of Madame Thénardier.
Well, I was music director for both.
I played Andras and the foreman in the first iteration of Les Mis, and I played Andras and Valjean, quite a step up from the foreman in the second iteration of Les Mis.
And I played Inspector Javert in both the 2014 and the 2019 productions.
In the 2014 production, I was Cosette. And then in 2019, I got to play Fantine.
In 2014, I played young Cosette, and in 2019, I played older Cosette.
elderly Cosette.
Big Cosette.
What was it like performing the same show but with 5 years difference? Did you feel you were better or not? Hopefully you'll say, yeah, I was better.
So it was very interesting for me to do it a second time.
I think performing the shows with a 5-year difference really gave me an understanding of the meaning of the show.
It just kind of makes you fall in love with the show again, from a different perspective.
It was very similar and very different at the same time. My voice was a lot more mature. The second time around that we did it,
When we did it the first time, that was my third role I'd ever gotten.
So Les Mis was the first actual show I had ever done in my entire life.
So I was very inexperienced. Didn't totally know what I was doing.
I was 10 years old, when I played young Cosette.
You weren't supposed to be in the show.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, I realized I am not a high soprano. That's not something that I am, so that's a good thing to realize.
There were many things that I didn't understand about the show. Obviously, more than just the prostitutes.
I think I did get significantly better, and mostly it has to do with my voice. After years of doing higher tenor roles, my voice could handle notes like the Barricades of Freedom during One Day More and all the rest that Andras had. They were a lot easier to tackle than they used to be.
I feel like very few things have changed when it comes to theater for me, because that show was really it showed me what theater was, and it introduced me to this art that I fell in love with.
I think the absolute biggest one was the maturity of the cast. I just remember when we started doing the second one, just thinking that we were never going to be able to top the first time we did it, because it was so good for me, and I was so pleased with the outcome, and I thought the kids were incredible and outstanding. And then to see quite a few of them come back in different roles or same roles even, and just surpass anything I could have imagined that we would have been able to do.
For me personally, I think vocally I had a stronger grip on the change between my belt and my head voice, and so I mixed it a lot better than I had when I was just learning to use my head voice.
Being able to go into it the second time with 5 more years of experience, almost 20 more shows of experience, and then some voice work and all of that kind of stuff, it was super, super fun to revisit the way that I had characterized that part 5 years previously. It was super fun to be able to go back to it and be like, okay, here is a way that I can change what I did because of how I now am seeing this character versus how I saw it 5 years ago.
I think a lot of my character choices remained the same for Honduras through both iterations, but at the same time, I also feel like my acting ability has gotten more mature since then, and so I made more deliberate choices rather than just kind of coasting along.
So I think it really gave me an understanding of like the whole show and myself as an actress, because I actually grew up with the character.
That show gave me the excitement of theater, and ever since then I've continued to love every aspect of theater.
Where 5 years ago I was kind of mostly worried about like, oh crap, Javert is a very vocally challenging role. I need to make sure that I'm hitting all of the notes and stuff. This time I felt like I got to focus a little bit more on making sure that I was acting every scene how I wanted to, and making sure that I was interacting with everyone else on stage the way that I wanted to, which was very, very fun.
It was really cool to see someone else in the role that I had portrayed.
Being able to see Rosie Ryan play it and then have to do it after Rosie and thinking I'm playing the same part that she was. And
so it was totally a rebirth of both of us, because we both grew into kind of our older or mother selves, I guess.
It was cool to grow that way and also have her be in the cast and offering me support and stuff.
So she did help you then?
Yeah, a lot. She told me what parts were hard for her and why, and then how she got through it.
The difference is you have always been a soprano, and Rosie, that was the first time she had sang soprano, so she probably had a tougher time vocally the first time through.
I had always been an alto and kind of newly discovered this soprano range that I had, and Joe and Kenlynn let me kind of explore that with Cosette.
I remember Kenlynn saying to me, she's singing soprano. That's not what she sings.
I know. I was so nervous.
Oh, but you nailed it. And I just remember having that conversation with Kenlynn that she knew right away that she was, I think, surprised that you were trying to do it, and then that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
You shared your roles in the 2019 production with Zane Walden, who played opposite you. So when you played Honduras, he was playing Valjean, and then when you played Valjean, he played Honduras. What was that like to share two roles? You've been double cast before in shows, but you didn't have to share the role. So was that strange, fun? You wouldn't want to do that ever again?
It was interesting. It was nice to see what Zane did with his characterizations of Valjean and Honduras. It was I kind of looked to him for notes every now and again for something like, oh well, how did Zane do this? Maybe that could help improve what I'm doing. It was interesting on nights like the night where I was playing Honduras, and during Bring Him Home, the spotlight went on me for a minute instead of going on Zane, and the split second thought of, should I just break into it? But it was interesting. I didn't hate it. I'd do it again.
in coming back to this show, now you're not in the ensemble. You weren't it wasn't the lead, but you know, how did you approach it with Madame Thenardier?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, Madame Thenardier was not my top pick at all. Once again, I was walking in there like, I want to be 14. Like, I wanted to almost like avenge my 12-year-old self and be like, no girl, you've got this, you can do this. And that's obviously not how it worked out, but that role turned into one of, if not my favorite roles ever. Going into it, I think for me what was interesting was less of the acting aspect, but more of the social aspect. I love off stage just as much as I love on stage. And I remember when I was 12 and I was going into this, and all of these older like kids, that all the people who got the leads who were like my age now, like 16-ish at the time, all these teenagers that I like looked up to, and I was like, wow, like Rosie and like Araya and even Dermot and all these people who I was like, holy crap, like this is so crazy.
I think in 2014 there was more of like an age gap between me and the older people in the cast.
And to get Madame Thenardier and look around and see like people there who were younger and were like around the same age I was when I started, and just kind of think like, realizing that I was now in that role.
In this one, I was right in the middle, so I could bond with people who were younger than me and those who were older than me, and so I made a lot of friends and got really close with a lot of people that I never thought I would.
I feel like that was even more like shocking and like hard, I guess, for my brain to like wrap around than the role was itself, because it was like I've gone full circle. And so like realizing that was super like crazy and like humbling. And then with character wise, that's just such a fun role. And so I just wanted to try and put something on stage that everyone would enjoy, no matter who you were, where you came from. And especially it being such a serious show, I wanted to keep all of the stuff I did lighthearted.
Well, I think, you know, in looking back in 2014, what struck me was your kind of like your strong choice of wanting to play this role, and even it was, you know, it was a little role, and yet you inhabited it with such great character. And that's really what you did with Madame Thenardier. 5 years later, you made so many strong choices, and I think about when the baby, when you're holding a loaf of bread, I think that's your baby, on the street as you're begging, you know, and you kept, you know, that was always hilarious, always got a laugh. And you're right, you were kind of you helped cleanse the palate so that we didn't all have to just be crying our eyes out the whole entire show. Kenlynn and I were talking before you got on, not just about you, like originally when I was interviewing her, and we were saying, you know, that you weren't originally cast as
that's true.
That we had to scramble because some actors dropped out, and so, you know, you were kind of the second wave that we tried to hear who could play, you know, Javert or something.
It's always a scramble, and that heart attack when you realize people are dropping shows. You have to change things.
We got the cast list came out. I was going to be a barricade boy. I was going to be in the ensemble doing that. And then the next day at rehearsal, you pulled me aside after rehearsal and were like, hey, so the guy who was playing Valjean dropped. So we need to start scrambling and figuring out who can play what. I need you to stay after rehearsal for like 45 minutes so that we can figure out what's happening.
But honestly, I don't think that it could have worked out better. I feel like it opened it up to people who may not have gotten roles.
And I walked out of that day with one of the primary characters in that show having been someone who would have had maybe one or two lines otherwise.
and so you stepped into that role, and we said we couldn't imagine anyone else doing that role now.
And I think, I mean, I wouldn't change that for, I don't even remember who we had originally.
Like, even if we do this again, we'll probably have to invite you back.
I would be happy to come back and play it again in 5 years when we do the 10-year anniversary.
And you did okay.
I think I did okay.
Don't get a big head, but I
Well, thank you.
I gotta say, you, if you remember, all of this is coming back to me. You were one of the few people who had a costume made for them for our 2019 show, because all of our costumes were in a storage unit in Phoenix. And so we had to borrow costumes from Flag Musical Theater, from Prescott Center for the Arts, and Prescott Performing Arts Center. That we borrowed all these costumes, but your Cosette dress was made for you, so you're special.
I am. And then like someone in El Enchanted wore it, and I was like,
you were in the last production, you were doing a little bit of research for your role while we were all learning the parts. Where were you?
By research, Joe means I was in France for about the majority of the rehearsals, which I was so surprised and very touched that I got to have the opportunity, even though I was going to be gone for such a long time. When I came back, everyone was just so welcoming and really like understanding. The first rehearsal that we had, we just ran it, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't know blocking at all, and it was just kind of like randomly on stage, but people would kind of like guide me or you know, or kind of just work with me with what I was doing, and so that was really just nice that they weren't like, oh, you're just coming into this and thinking you know what you're doing. They kind of like led me along and helped me in that role, because that was really hard.
I don't have many pictures, like stills of the show, but the one I do is you in red with the musket over your head. That was the shot we would use to say, okay, TheatriKids can do. We can do some shows.
I love that picture. I remember seeing that picture go up on the TheatriKids page on Facebook, and I was like, "Yo, look, there I am!" Like, I associate that picture and I associate that show with kind of TheatriKids' leap into we can do bigger shows, so let us do bigger shows.
When people hear that a kids theater is doing Les Mis, expectations generally aren't that high, and in a lot of even community theaters, just depending on the different programs, sometimes you're not going to get a good quality performance because it is a very difficult and taxing show. In my opinion, one of the best shows we've done, probably both times.
I thought you did an amazing job in 2014, and then in 2019, I was just blown away again in a different way too. You just raised the bar when I didn't think you could raise it anymore.
We staged Stars the exact same way we had staged it in the 2014 production. So I was doing the same movements on the same lines that I had done 5 years previous, and that was a very cool full circle moment for me. It was hard for me to not be smiling the whole time during this very serious song.
That show really was such a spark in my life.
As soon as Les Mis came around, I had something to get me out of bed. I just remember every day having just this joy, just feeling this joy of getting to go to rehearsal and getting to work with all of these people that I love working with and all of my friends. It's one of those, I feel like, stereotypical nostalgic summers that you have from when you were a kid, where you look back like, oh, summer of 2014, Les Mis, man, that was a good time.
After the last show, we were actually backstage, and you just gave me this big hug, and I just knew everything you were trying to say through the hug, you know, and it was just a really special moment because it was, you know, my last show before I left for college, and I've known you since I was 10.
You're right. Coming full circle and really inhabiting that role was just a joy to watch each night.
Thank you.
Well, of course.
You were a joy to work with, Joe.
Oh, I've heard. All right. Well, do you have anything else you wanted to say?
No.
Okay. All right, then I release you. I'm going to go get my socks on.